Josh Kitchen in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, rain is done now, but tomorrow should be partly cloudy and cool with a high of 58. Now, Saturday is 55 degrees with a chance of rain, 48 with more rain likely on Sunday. And right now, cloudy and 52 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Yesterday, President Biden's long-anticipated meeting with President Xi of China finally happened after a lot of delays. Finally, it did take place. There were a lot of headlines that came out of the meeting yesterday, but beyond the optics, the photo ops, and the strategic messaging, what did we actually learn from the words of these two world leaders? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Lot to cover today as we try to break down all the news from yesterday and beyond the headlines in a historic meeting, I think, between President Biden and President Xi of China. So stick with us for the next 30 minutes. We're going to look at the remarks that both of the leaders made coming out of those meetings and talks, and then we're going to get into some breakdown in terms of what it actually means. Coming up at 1:20, we're going to talk about the therefore what of all of this. In events like this, it's often, after all is said and done, more is said than is ever done. Especially when it comes to China and the U.S. Doing the diplomatic dance. So we'll break all of that down. But we're going to begin today in their own words. It's always good to start with what the leaders actually said coming out of the meeting, and then we'll talk about what it means and what it means for you and for the rest of the world coming up. So after the meeting, President Biden held his own press conference. They did not have a joint statement. They did not have a joint press conference, partially because leaders of China do not do press conferences. They don't take questions from the media. That's not the way it rolls in China. So he did not do that. It was President Biden doing a solo with reporters. He announced some real progress would finally be made to curb the flow of fentanyl, the precursor chemicals flowing out of China into Mexico and ultimately deadly forms entering the United States.
I'm pleased to announce that after many years of being on hold, we are restarting cooperation between the United States and PRC on counter-narcotics. More people in the United States between the ages of 18 and 49 die from fentanyl than from guns, car accidents, or any other cause. So today, with this new understanding, we're taking action to significantly reduce the flow of precursor chemicals and pill presses from China to the Western Hemisphere. It's going to save lives, and I appreciate President Xi's commitment on this issue.
So that was President Biden, and I think that may have been one of the most important components coming out. Again, the bar was set very low for these talks, but I think this was an important one in terms of can we at least change the dynamic in terms of those precursor chemicals coming out of China into Mexico and ultimately coming into the United States in the form of fentanyl. One of the primary objectives of this meeting between the two world leaders was focused on the military communication, which had been suspended for some time, and it appears that came to pass, that they're going to actually reignite or reconnect the two military communication systems. President Xi, and will be the voice of his interpreter, talked about reconnecting that military contact.
We're reassuming military-to-military contact. As a lot of you press know who follow this, that's been cut off, and it's been very worrisome. That's how accidents happen, misunderstandings. So we're back to direct, open, clear, direct communications. Vital miscalculations on either side can cause real trouble with a country like China. I think we're made real progress there as well. Moreover, the United States will continue to compete vigorously with the PRC, but we'll manage that competition responsibly so it doesn't veer into conflict. And where it's possible, where our interests coincide, we're going to work together like we did on fentanyl. That's what the world expects of us.
So that was important messaging, I think, from President Biden. I actually want to pause there for just a second because I think the way he framed the last part of that. So first part was important, reassuming military contact. President Biden laid it out that, look, we don't want to have any miscalculations. We've got airplanes flying in close proximity. We have naval vessels in close proximity. And without that military to military communication ability, you can get into trouble really fast. So I think we prevented some things there. That's important. But what President Biden said at the end, not a lot of coverage of this, but I think this is important. So he talked about competing with China, but then he also talked about working together with China. And this is important. We're going to come back to this at 1:20 with Jamil Jaffer to break this down. I think this is one of the crucial leadership characteristics of the 21st century, and that is being able to compete and then be able to cooperate. Because you have to go head to head on a whole host of things, but then you have to work together to solve other issues. And businesses do this all the time. You have the banking industry that are competing against one another over and over and over again, but then they have to come together to be united to dealing with some of the regulatory things coming out of Washington, D.C. Airlines have faced similar things where they compete, but then they've got to collaborate on some things as well. So as it relates to China, the best example to me of this is dealing with North Korea. In order to deal properly with North Korea, we have to be able to communicate and cooperate with China and Russia. Nothing changes in North Korea unless China and Russia are on board. And so I thought that was a significant thing that the president said yesterday that not a lot of people picked up in terms of compete and cooperate strategically. And we'll come back to that at 1:20. Now, the two world leaders also spoke about the geopolitics around the world, including Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Gaza, Hamas, and maintaining peace in the Indo-Pacific region.
President Xi and I also exchanged views on a range of regional and global issues, including Russia's brutal war of aggression against Ukraine and conflict in Gaza. I also stressed the importance of peace and stability in the Taiwan Straits. It's clear that we object to Beijing's non-market economic practices that disadvantage American businesses and workers, and that we'll continue to address them. And I named what I thought a number of those were. I welcome the positive steps we've taken today.
President Xi, who, again, did not have a press conference, he went immediately into a meeting with U.S. business leaders. We'll also break that down at 1:20. Ironic that the leader of the Communist Party in China focused on meeting with entrepreneurial, freedom-moving companies in the United States. Really fascinating. After that event, President Xi made some comments through an interpreter about China's commitment to peace with the United States.
China will remain committed to dialogue and oppose confrontation and build partnerships instead of alliances. It will continue to pursue a mutually beneficial strategy of opening up. The modernization we are pursuing is not for China alone. We are ready to work with all countries to advance global modernization featuring peaceful development, mutually beneficial cooperation, and common prosperity, and to build a community with a shared future for mankind.
So some positive statements there, and a very interesting dynamic for President Xi of China, struggling economically at home. This was an important, I think, connection in terms of, I think the most important meetings for President Xi were those with the U.S. business leaders that took place later in the day. Also, as always takes place in these kinds of events, you always try to choreograph things, get everything to go just right, and then someone has a misstep. President Biden had one of those, a little diplomatic dance and a little two-stepper by President Biden. He referred to President Xi as a dictator in response to a reporter's question while the Chinese president was still in the country. Here's how that exchange went down.
President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
So a little misstep there by the president. Not good to call the dictator a dictator while the dictator is still in your own country. So I think there was a little bit of a patchwork that needs to be done on that part of the program. But we're going to go past what the two leaders said, and we're going to get to what do the diplomats think, and more importantly, what changes as a result of what took place yesterday in San Francisco. Stick around. We'll pick up the conversation on President Biden and President Xi's historic connection and meetings yesterday, and what happens in the end. Therefore, what? After all the hoopla, all the diplomatic dance, what does it mean? We'll talk about that coming up next. Stick around.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. President M. Russell Ballard.
Part of the history of this church, the great-great-grandson of Hiram Smith.
A life and legacy.
I've met with members of the church all over the world. Oh, how I love you. What a glorious experience that's been to look into your faces.
Remembering the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on KSL News Radio.
Holiday Stories from Shane Company customers.
It's our first Christmas together, and I wanted to get her something special. That's why I went to Shane Company. They had so many great gifts to choose from. It was a toss-up between hoop earrings and an emerald bracelet. So I got both, one for under the tree and one for her stocking.
Shop holiday gifts in every price range. Fine jewelry crafted with care and made to last a lifetime. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company. Fine jewelry since 1929.
I'm so stressed about my business not being ready for the holidays.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Dell's Black Friday event is their biggest sale of the year. Shop limited time deals on laptops like the stylish, innovative XPS 13, engineered to do it all on the Intel Evo platform. Plus, save big on ultra-sharp monitors and top brand accessories. Shop now at Dell.com/deals to take advantage of financing options and get free shipping on everything. Again, that's Dell.com/deals for huge savings today.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is, they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's November snow is arriving later than expected. Ski resorts have had to push back some opening dates. Second, Granite School District's annual project making holiday Santa sacks for students is underway. And third, Major League Baseball has approved the Oakland A's move to Las Vegas. They may not play there, though, until 2028. Right now, 52 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
It is always a pleasure to have joining us on the show Jamil Jaffer, the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at the Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason University. And of course, all eyes were on San Francisco yesterday as President Biden and President Xi of China had their first face-to-face meeting in some time. And of course, the photo ops were there, a few comments to the press. And we want to get to the therefore what component to everything that took place beyond the diplomatic dance and the photo ops and the headlines. And Jamil, as you watch that play out, give us first just a high-level sense in terms of what stood out to you, and then we'll unpack a little of the specifics.
Well, look, I think there were some positive developments. Obviously, we saw a resumption of military-to-military communications that had been disrupted by China in the lead-up to and the aftermath of Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. We also saw an agreement by China to curb the entrance of fentanyl to the United States. One wonders why it takes a meeting between President Biden and President Xi for them to stop a drug that is killing hundreds and thousands of Americans. But they got that agreement at least, so there's something there. But look, there remain challenges in the relationship. Taiwan continues to be a sore spot for both sides. In particular, the Chinese talking points appear to have actually changed in a way that's not particularly productive, whereas in the past they wanted the U.S. to stay out and sort of not push Taiwan towards independence. There's now sort of a notion that the U.S. should acknowledge that the goal of the China-Taiwan relationship is one of reunification. That is not something that we're likely to agree to, but it's a demand they've now sort of put on the table, and that's a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no question about that for sure. So as you watch that play out, I think one of the interesting things you mentioned first, that important reconnection of the military to military. I think with everything going on in the world and there in the Straits, where we are having planes and boats and things in close contact, having that military to military, I think at least closes one of the big volatile trapdoors, I think, in the relationship.
No, absolutely. And, as you point out, I mean, we have two major wars going on in the Middle East and in Europe. And we have this situation in the Indo-Pacific where China just last week sent, 43 fighter jets and 7 warships into Taiwan's territorial waters and airspace. This has happened over and over again. You and I have talked about it on the show before. Yeah. It's a real problem. And so the tensions there are heating up, right? And the tensions between, there was a Chinese warship that collided with the Philippines fishing vessel. So there are tensions in that region as well. And you might worry that something might just tip over. And so having that mill-to-mill, military-to-military channel open is good, just to make sure that everyone says, hey, look, this wasn't intentional. This was a mistake. We're not actually trying to start, World War III. That's a real positive. I think something we had with the Soviet Union, if everyone remembers, those are sort of old enough to remember, there's actually a red phone, right, that you pick up and get the other side on the line. And so this is sort of the equivalent of that old 1980s red phone.
I love that. We need one of those, I think, on several fronts these days, but we'll see how that one continues to play out. One of the interesting things that I was trying to keep my eye on and get a sense of, obviously President Xi has some challenges at home in terms of the economy and what's going on. Clearly, the dynamics of the relationship has been far more on competition, but clearly there needs to be some collaboration as well. Did you sense any softening there or positioning? Obviously, President Xi went and after meeting with President Biden, had a real expensive dinner with a lot of U.S. business leaders. Give us some sense on the economic front, and what does that do to the dynamic of the relationship?
Yeah, well, look, for a long time, Boyd, American companies have seen China as a huge market, a chance for them to sell American goods and capabilities. They've seen China as a place to do low-cost manufacturing and bring goods back to the U.S. to sell at higher prices here. The challenge, of course, now is this new environment that we're in, where we now recognize that having some parts of our critical supply chains, we learned this during the pandemic with personal protective equipment and pharmaceutical precursors. There are certain parts of supply chain that are strategically problematic for us to have in China. It's one thing to buy T-shirts from China. It's another thing to rely on China for semiconductors or critical minerals or the like, all of which, by the way, today we do. And so, look, the economic relationship between China and the U.S. is not going to end anytime soon, not even close to it. But there are going to be challenges, and we are going to have to separate some of our capabilities. We have to onshore some of them. We're going to have to ally shore, friend shore some of them. And I think the Chinese recognize that, and they're trying to keep U.S. businesses engaged. But the way they're behaving at home is not helping. They're making threats against auditing firms. They just took action against the U.S. chip manufacturer Micron. And so China's getting aggressive against American companies, and they've long sort of extorted American companies into transferring intellectual property and entering into joint venture agreements and the like. And so it's a real problem. But we'll see going forward how that plays out. I do think that for American companies, it's likely the situation with China economically is likely to become more challenging in the future, not less.
I thought one of the really interesting quotes coming out of the meeting with U.S. business leaders and President Xi of China was kind of this warm hand extended by President Xi, and then this interesting statement about if we only see each other as competitors, that it will lead to misinformed policy making, misguided action, and unwanted results. I think that's a pretty interesting statement coming from President Xi.
Yeah, I think that he's responding to what he sees as the prior Trump administration policy, and to be fair to the Biden administration, their early policy as well, as sort of being tough on China, preventing them from getting access to semiconductor technology, including U.S. semiconductors as well, and a warning as well, saying, hey, look, if you're going to do this to me, I'm going to push back, and it's going to get tense and problematic. And the fact of the matter is, I think that that's going to be hard to avoid, to just be honest with you, Boyd. I think the reality is that if China were a known good actor, and we could trust that they wouldn't cut our supply of chips off or cut our supply of critical minerals off or the like, then maybe this would be a conversation. The truth is, though, that they have regularly done that to other adversaries, other people they see as competitors. And as a result, it's likely that we're going to have to engage in some more of this type of action. And so even though the Biden administration has made every effort to sort of try to, welcome them in, and he's sent, a half dozen cabinet members or whatever, a quarter dozen cabinet members to China in the last few months. He's out on this meeting. I actually worry that this sort of, we'll tweak you in the face on this one and then give you our hand on the other one. I think that these mixed messages actually create more risk because it results in China not understanding what our policy is, not understanding how committed we are as a nation, increasingly so, to understanding that as not just a strategic competitor, but as a national security threat. And that the best solution to that, by the way, Boyd, is for them to stop behaving the way they do at home, in their neighborhood, and with us.
The mixed messages, I think it creates more confusion than clarity in the relationship, and that often does lead to bad action or bad reaction in terms of what's going on. Jamil, before I let you go, we often say after these kinds of big things, which I think were clearly good for President Xi, clearly good for President Biden to show they could have a productive meeting as world leaders. That's a good thing, I think, for everybody politically. I think it's a good show for the home country. But often in things like this, it's sort of after all is said and done, much more is said than is done. So what will be the thing that will be done out of this that you think could be the most significant takeaway?
Well, look, we will see if China lives up to its agreement to cut off the flow of fentanyl to the United States. We know that they're aware of what's happening. We know that they know how deadly it's been to Americans in this country. And we know that they have largely allowed it to happen. And so if they actually take real action on that front, I think it's a very productive thing. And I think that there will be a real benefit to the American public if that illegal flow of fentanyl stops from across our southern border. It's a problem of two things. It's a problem because the Chinese government allows it to happen, and it's a problem because our southern border is weak. And so if we fix at least one piece of that, then we start concentrating on the border problem itself and really get that right as well.
Fantastic. Great perspective as always. Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at the Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason University. Jamil, as always, appreciate your deep dive of perspective and understanding of this, helping us walk our way through it. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Glad to do it.
Great perspective as always. We've spent the last 30 minutes getting beyond the headlines as it relates to President Biden and President Xi's meeting in San Francisco, and we will watch with the rest of the world to see what happens beyond the photo ops and the headlines to see what actually gets done. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, Derek Brown, the former chair of Utah's Republican Party, could challenge the incumbent attorney general in next year's election. He's formed an exploratory committee. Sean Reyes has won 3 terms in the AG's office, but he's run into trouble in recent months because of his relationship with anti-trafficking activist Tim Ballard. Trucks and SUVs are more likely to kill a pedestrian than other smaller cars, and KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
Cars and trucks with hoods higher than 40 inches are 45% more likely to hit somebody. Research from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety shows trucks and SUVs with tall, squared-up hoods are bestsellers, but they're also 43% more likely to kill a pedestrian if hit. The U.S. is seeing an uptick of pedestrians killed by cars. Last year, an estimated 320 were killed just in Utah. The rise in pedestrian deaths have outpaced the increase in overall U.S. traffic deaths following the pandemic. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The situation with civilians in Gaza has gotten more dire over the past few days. Doctors at the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza say dozens of people have died in the ICU after their oxygen supplies ran out. In the meantime, U.S. officials say they're in constant conversations about how to get safe passage for the civilians still trapped in Gaza. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller.
Remember that it is Hamas that is putting all of these people in harm's way. It is Hamas that continues to operate inside hospitals as they have done inside mosques and schools and other civilian infrastructure. It is the Hamas that is the root of all this problem. That is creating such a difficult challenge for the international community and for the Israeli military.
Israeli forces say the body of one of the more than 200 hostages that have been held since October were found at that hospital, and they're trying to root out Hamas militants that may be using hospitals as command posts. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day 104 points right now. The NASDAQ is down only about 9 points. And our KSL weather looks like the rain will taper off for the next day or so. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is, they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Marie Osmond, an orchestral Christmas. Saturday, December 2nd at Eccles Theater. With special guest David Osmond. Live at the Eccles presents Marie Osmond. An orchestral Christmas, live in concert. Tickets on sale now at liveeccles.com.
Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit HotTubAndSwimSpaSale.com.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Cypress Credit Union has got the ease and expertise for all your business needs. Ask Cypress about payroll and HR resources, payment processing systems, lending needs, and more. Visit cypresscu.com.
We're still looking at an emergency traffic situation. Here's KSL News Radio's Josh Kitchen.
Emergency traffic continues in Davis County, that's southbound I-15, where crews have just opened all lanes at Parish Lane, still have residual emergency delays that go starting from Glover's Lane and into Centerville. Witness the magic of the Nutcracker opening December 8th with the timeless music of Tchaikovsky performed live by the Ballet West Orchestra. Tickets at balletwest.org. Josh Kitchen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. And our KSL weather, the rain should be done and gone this afternoon. Tomorrow, partly cloudy and cool with a high of 58. 55 on Saturday with a chance of rain. Then 48 with more rain likely on Sunday. And right now, we're at 52 degrees with light rain. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
On college campuses across the country, students are using their voices to advocate for their beliefs. And although using your voice to speak out is a vital part of college culture and a protected American value, by the way, many students have gone beyond just the civil discussions, and increasingly we're finding ourselves on the verge of violent or contentious fights or arguments on campus. Is there any way to restore that civility on college campuses and create space for a healthy pluralism? Really thrilled to have joining us on the program for the first time, Rebecca Russo, Senior Director of Higher Education Strategy at Interfaith America. And Rebecca oversees the higher education strategy with a particular focus on bridge building programs and partnering with senior campus administrators. This is important work. And Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Rebecca, I know you've been focused on interfaith experiences. You've lived in Morocco and Jerusalem. I want to get into all of that. Let's start with a high level, though. In terms of your work on college campuses, what is it that you're trying to foster? How are you going about trying to create space for a different kind of dialogue?
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be here with you. We are trying to work to create space on college campuses where people can engage productively across deep divides, whether those are religious divides, political divides, ideological divides, and other forms of difference, and to really create a space where students don't feel that they have to minimize those differences or water down or diminish their own unique identities and ideologies, but be able to find ways to live together, to work together, to be in community together, and I would say even be enriched by being with people who are different from them and who think differently from them.
I think that's so vital, and it is that interconnectedness of community and both recognizing the identity and divinity that everyone brings to the table, and not just to be okay or to other the other people, but to have, I like to refer to it as the holy envy for people of all faiths and of no faith in terms of the way they think, the way they live.
Absolutely.
And so give us a sense in terms of some of the programs and some of the things that you're doing on college campuses. Obviously, there's a lot in the news about protests on college campuses and some of the more divisive rhetoric. Tell us what you're actually experiencing in some of the programs that you're doing on campuses across the country.
Sure. So our programming in general is really about being proactive, about fostering positive relationships and cooperation across differences. So we run an annual Interfaith Leadership Summit that brings together hundreds of students and educators around around the country to be trained in interfaith leadership and to bring that leadership back to their campuses. We run faculty development programs to work with faculty to integrate positive engagement of religious diversity and identity in meaningful and relevant ways into their curriculum and coursework. And we create opportunities for senior administrators and campus presidents to gather to think at a vision level and a strategic level about what does it mean to create a campus environment where diversity and religious diversity is engaged proactively and positively. So those are the kinds of programs that we run. During this time of increased divisiveness on campuses, of course, we are seeing many of the challenges that we're reading about in the news in terms of deep disagreement and unproductive discourse on campus. And we're also seeing, thankfully, some bright spots in places where there are strong pre-existing relationships between communities on campus and an infrastructure for interfaith relationships or engaging across difference, where we are seeing some bright spots of positive engagement in this challenging moment.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And the work that you all are doing at Interfaith America, I think, is so vital to helping bridge and create space for those conversations. And it is one of those, it's easy to focus on just the worst of the worst out there, but there are a lot of bright spots, as you said, around the country that we should be celebrating, and not just celebrating, but emulating, and not just on college campuses. We need to do that in our workplaces and in our communities as well. Rebecca, I have to ask you this question. I've been dying to ask you this all day today, just in preparing for the show. Something that you have talked about in terms of your own experience, again, going to your time in Morocco and Jerusalem, you talked about this concept called "these and those are words of the living God." Explain that to us, because I think there's something in there that is really powerful for a lot of our conversations.
Sure. So I am Jewish, and I come out of a Jewish tradition that highly values the wrestling with different ideas and creating space for divergent viewpoints. So one of our most central texts in our tradition is called the Talmud, and it is a recounting of rabbinic disagreements and debates about various issues that come out of the Torah, and how do we apply those in modern day life. Hundreds of years ago when it was written. But in the Talmud, one of the ideas that is written there is this idea in Hebrew, Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim Chaim. These and those are words of the living God. And the idea is that in cases of rabbinic disagreement or disagreement in interpretation of our tradition, we can see both of those as words of the living God. And to me, that is a piece of my own tradition that really inspires me to be able to hold that there are multiple viewpoints, there are multiple ways of seeing the world, and when I am encountering someone who I disagree with, I really try to come at it from that approach that there is divinity or there is goodness. It doesn't have to be from a religious standpoint per se, but there is goodness. There is the possibility of seeing where they're coming from as coming from a place of good and not automatically assuming ill intent or assuming that the way that I think is the right way or the only way.
I love that. I have holy envy for that perspective. I think it's so important that we learn to hold things that might even seem to be at opposite ends of a spectrum in our hands as we have those conversations. Too often we buy into the fake fight and the false choice when we can find a different way, even if it's, as you said, really looking at just where they're coming from. I wonder why she thinks that's the best approach, or I wonder why he feels so passionately about that. Staying curious about each other seems to me that has to be part of the equation to move it all forward.
Yeah, staying curious is so important. I really, really appreciate what you just said, and having that assuming good intent and being curious and wanting to learn more, not just about what the person is saying, but about what in their life experience or their values or their religious or secular tradition animates the way that they see the world, is just incredibly powerful and so important.
I love that. Rebecca Russo is the Senior Director of Higher Education Strategy at Interfaith America. We love the work that's going on there. Rebecca, thank you so much for making time for us today and for your work and for demonstrating to us that despite challenges on college campuses, there are some extraordinary young people who will be the part of the solution and building the bridges to a better future and better discussions. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Again, that's Rebecca Russo, Senior Director of Higher Education Strategy at Interfaith America. They're doing some just amazing things on college campuses and bringing people together for a different kind of discussion. And if we can look at it in just a different way, stay curious, have compassion, seek understanding, we can have a different kind of conversation. That's the name of the game. We'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next.
You know what? I think the holidays are the worst time of year for your furnace to go out. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and every November it feels like people get extra stressed when faced with the need to replace their furnace. The money they've been saving is supposed to go to Christmas, and now they're faced with a choice: Christmas or comfort. This holiday season, Any Hour Services wants to help alleviate some of that stress with our special holiday financing. No money down and no payments until next year. Plus, if you schedule a free estimate before the end of November, Any Hour Services will give you $1,500 off any full system you buy. And that doesn't even factor in the rebates and incentives you might qualify for. Again, during the month of November, Any Hour Services will give you $1,500 off any furnace and air conditioner you buy. And you can take advantage of our special holiday financing with no money down and no payments until next year. For more details, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
In order for small businesses to thrive, they need to be smart, efficient, savvy, staying ahead of the market at every turn, finding ways to do more with less, and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes their way. That's why Comcast Business is introducing the Small Business Bonus. For a limited time, you can get up to a $1,000 prepaid card when you switch to Comcast Business, the company with the largest, fastest, reliable network. Yep, you heard that right. 1,000 back. Something extra for your company. From the company that powers more businesses than anyone else. So if you're a small business owner, don't wait. Call or go online to learn about the $1,000 bonus today. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 12/5/2023. New customers with 750 megabits per second or above and 2-year agreement must keep required new services for 30 days to receive prepaid card. Other restrictions apply.
Hello, this is former Utah Governor Gary Herbert. Salt Lake City is fortunate to have a mayor who cares more about results than partisan politics, and that's why I've endorsed Mayor Erin Mendenhall for re-election. We don't always agree on policy, but she's always willing to listen and to collaborate. Erin is crisis-tested and has proven to be a strong leader for Salt Lake City. I hope you'll vote Erin Mendenhall for mayor and return your ballot today.
Learn more at erinmendenhall.com. Paid for by Erin Mendenhall for Salt Lake City.
Experience the timeless Christmas classic that has captivated audiences nationwide. For master songwriter and storyteller Michael McLean, The Forgotten Carols is back. With an unforgettable story and songs that are a Christmas tradition for families everywhere. See the spectacular stage musical in Orem, Salt Lake, Ogden, Vernal, Tooele, and Heber. Tickets at ForgottenCarols.com.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15s. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Advanced Window Products. Factory direct affordable windows. Call today and they're on their way. Financing available. Save now, pay later. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindowsusa.com.
Sign up for KSL text alerts and you could win cash. Text the word cash to 57500 for a chance to win $250. That's cash to 57500. Plus, you'll get breaking news and traffic updates right to your phone. Want to win more prizes? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz Jazz for breaking Utah Jazz news and Cougar fans. Text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply. For an alternate entry method and complete contest rules, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, turns out pickup trucks with high hoods are more likely to kill pedestrians in an accident. Second, a toxin blowing off the dry bed of the Great Salt Lake has been linked to a specific neurological disease. Third, the situation at the main hospital in Gaza has become even more dire. The body of one of the hostages held by Hamas has turned up there. Right now, light rain, 52 degrees in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, we're coming down the home stretch in 2023, which means we're just about to turn the corner and throw it into high gear for another presidential election cycle. I know that might cause some exhaustion or exasperation to many Americans, but we want to shift the conversation a little bit as it relates to that and look at some other possibilities. I think it's important for us to always get beyond just the either-or, way we've always done it, the way it's always been, and actually see if there isn't a way to do it differently. So one of the conversations, of course, that has been heating up a little bit rolling into 2024 is there a chance, are you saying there's a chance of a third-party alternative if the Democrats continue to stay with President Joe Biden and if the Republicans continue to stay with former President Donald Trump? Most Americans, 70+% of Americans, don't want that choice. They do not want a Biden-Trump 2.0 conversation to be happening for 2024. So that has raised a lot of interest and a lot of curiosity about independent runs. Of course, you've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who started running as a Democrat, shifted and became an independent. And very fascinating, he's been polling at about 22% in a 3-way race between Biden, Trump, and Kennedy. That's a pretty high number early on. Now, that typically tends to fade away as you get closer to Election Day, and both sides of the aisle are going to say, oh, you can't do that. A third party can only be a spoiler. It will only let the other side win. And Democrats will say that if there is a third party, Joe Manchin or Robert Kennedy or someone else, that will hurt Joe Biden, and then the awful, evil President Trump would win another term. And the Republicans will say if there's a third party alternative, that's going to hurt the Republicans, and that means the awful, evil current President Biden will be the victor and have 4 more years. So both sides are going to play this, and that's how you know in Washington, D.C., if you hit a nerve. If both sides come out swinging at something, you know you're pretty close to the truth of where the American people are. So one of those people garnering a lot of those headlines and a lot of the attention is Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. He announced recently that he would not seek re-election to the Senate from West Virginia and has said he's going to travel the country. He's going to have conversations, and he'll give it a look and see if maybe a presidential run is in his future. He appeared on CNN on Wednesday talking with Caitlin Collins, and he talked about something that I think is so crucial that everyone understands, regardless of your political bent or persuasion. He talked about the business of politics losing sight of the needs of the American people.
The business of politics has gotten so big because the business model is a Democrat business and a Republican business. And it really forgot about the people to a certain extent.
And so it is that big business. And trust me, it is not just big business. It is ginormous business. Billions of dollars of business to the political industrial complex on the left and the right, who raise all kinds of money for all kinds of candidates in the pursuit of power. So having an alternative is a tremendous threat to the industrial complex and those currently in power. Because remember, one of the things that people in power do is use division as a way to maintain the status quo. Because if they convince you that we're just too divided to deal with health care or immigration or any other issue, then Congress gets an excuse to do nothing. Political parties continue to fight. Presidents of either party use the pen and a cell phone to do things by executive order. Things ends up in the court, and we just kind of maintain the status quo. But that keeps those in power in power. So, a third party is a threat to the industrial complex and to those in political power. So in this conversation with Senator Joe Manchin, he was asked if he was planning a third-party presidential run. Here's what he said.
Everyone's talking about a third-party run. I'm talking about basically trying to resurrect the middle, the moderate middle, the sensible, common sense middle. And right now, I don't care what you say or what people might be thinking. They're telling me that we've had enough. We can't take.
The American people have been saying that we are exhausted and exasperated, and we have had enough. So the first thing that Senator Manchin is trying to do is to see if there really is an appetite for that. The American people seem to be saying, hey, we're tired of status quo. And will the movable middle actually move? Will the quiet majority of the center left to the center right of the nation actually rise up and realize they're actually the majority? They are the majority. The far right, the far left, that's not where the country is by a long shot. Most fall in that center left to center right. Now, this is not about kumbaya and group hugs and all of that stuff. Joe Manchin was particular about that. He said, because of the increasing partisan nature of politics, it's preventing us from actually doing the right things.
It's just a horrible situation when every time you're in, you're in cycle, you're up. It could be one of your better friends on the other side. If you have a D by your name or an R by your name, you're supposed to be against the person on the other side, no matter who it is. And it never used to be like that. They tell us way back when, and it used to be an unwritten rule. And now this is fair game, and there's no way that where we come from, whether it be Alabama or West Virginia, that you try to get someone fired every day you go to work and expect they're going to be your best friend next week. Doesn't work.
So what Joe Manchin is saying is that the transactional kinds of politics that we have seen, in particular since 2016, is not going to work. We have to get back to relationships, because that's how you actually solve problems in a way that's sustainable and that will actually produce real results. Senator Manchin, of course, has been making the rounds on a lot of the different networks. During an interview yesterday with Kristen Welker on NBC, Senator Manchin said that he would consider a presidential run. Here's the exchange.
Just to clarify, just to put a fine point, I know you haven't made any decisions, but are you considering running for president?
I will do anything I can to help my country.
Is that a yes?
And you're saying, does that mean you would consider it? Absolutely. Every American should consider. If they're in a position to help save the country, I think we're on the wrong course. So I will do everything possible.
I actually like that answer. We all should think about that. If we can do something that's for the good of the country, we should think about doing that. I think that's a good thing. I don't think that was just Senator Manchin being cagey. I don't think he was being cagey at all. He's been very clear that he would consider a presidential run. Right now, he said, I'm traveling the country. I'm going to have conversations with the American people, and he's going to assess if he believes he can make a difference for the country. And if he can, he'll get in. And if not, he won't. And so it's an interesting thing to look at and to see how it's being framed. And the thing that just has me chuckling watching this unfold is just how crazy violently the left and the right are reacting to Senator Manchin, to the No Labels group. We're actually going to have Senator Joe Lieberman, one of the founders of No Labels, is going to join us on the program coming up on Monday next week. And so make sure you stick around on Monday for a really interesting conversation with Joe Manchin with where No Labels, where they are in their progress. I know they've already been declared eligible in about 14 states, I believe, at this point, continuing to seek ballot access. The fact that it's hard to get ballot access is something we'll talk about another day. But all of this shows to me that there is a movable middle. They are actually the majority of the country. The question is, will they recognize it? Will they rise up? Will they vote? Or will they stick with the status quo? That wraps up hour number one of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. Rabbi Samuel Spector, who is in Israel, will join us coming up at 2:05. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A chronic neurotoxin that has strong links to ALS has been found in the dry lake bed of the Great Salt Lake. Dr. Paul Allen Cox explains the gradual drying of the lake has led to the fostering of the toxins called MEAA.
So basically what's happened here at the Great Salt Lake is it's lost 70% of its surface area. It's left large parts of the lake bed exposed. That's a problem because the Great Salt Lake has many different types of cyanobacteria in it, including this one which we collected, Nodularia spumaginum.
MEAA has been tested on lab animals who apparently showed symptoms of ALS. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. David DePape, the man who broke into former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home last year in San Francisco and attacked her husband, has been convicted by a federal court jury. ABC's Alex Stone reports from California.
Guilty on both counts, assault on an immediate family member of a federal official and attempted kidnapping. The jury also found DePape used a dangerous weapon, a hammer, in the attack. DePape showed no emotion in federal court as the verdict was read. His attorney put her hand on his shoulder to comfort him. He could get 50 years in prison when he's sentenced, and he also faces separate state charges. This week, DePape told the jury he broke into the Pelosi home after consuming right-wing podcasts and YouTube videos and had become angry over what he then thought were government and media lies. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average is down, but not as steeply as it was earlier in the day, down 45 points now. And the NASDAQ has crossed into positive territory, up 9 points right now. And our KSL weather looks like it's going to clear up for Friday, but rain will be back on Saturday. That's next. KSL News Time 2:02.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio. Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
Attention smart homeowners. You don't have to fall for flashy promises and companies that don't even prove their work. At Your Service Pros uses third-party verification software called MeasureQuick to ensure your new HVAC system is installed correctly. This ultimate game changer in the HVAC industry lets you, the homeowner, have proof of how your system was installed. At Your Service Pros utilizes our Bluetooth tools to upload all of your system's information into MeasureQuick. We rely on data-driven insights to properly commission, optimize, and fine-tune your HVAC system for peak performance, improving your family's comfort, lowering your utility bills, and extending the life of your HVAC system. With rebates and tax credits available totaling more than $7,500 on a dual fuel heating and cooling system, it is now more important than ever that your HVAC system be installed correctly. So call us today at 801-YOUR-PRO. That's 801-YOUR-PRO. Have the peace of mind of saving up to 50% on your new system and knowing it's installed correctly by calling 801-YOUR-PRO.
Attention Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. Don't wait for bad weather to schedule professional snow service with GoPave Utah. Your complete parking lot safety starts at GoPaveUtah.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Josh Kitchen.
In Davis County, delays have cleared on southbound I-15 now that all lanes are open. We do have some delays down in Utah County. That's southbound I-15 in Spanish Fork at the US 6 junction. Those delays are due to the right lane being closed. Renew your smile with Grandpa's Dental. Grandpa's Dental offers cosmetic and routine dentistry. Visit grandpasdental.com for a location near you. That's grandpasdental.com. Josh Kitchen in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Rain is done this afternoon. Tomorrow will be partly cloudy and cool with a high of 58. 55 on Saturday with a chance of rain, and 48 with more rain likely on Sunday. And right now we're at 52 degrees and cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The war in Israel has had a global impact, to be sure, but it's also had ripples that have hit very close to home right here in the state of Utah. In fact, one Utah rabbi has gone to Israel with a delegation of rabbis to show solidarity with the Jewish people. The trip was all about supporting Israelis after they had experienced such horror on October the 7th. But what they found was an incredibly resilient community that had already come together in powerful ways. Let's get beyond the headlines. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we are really thrilled to have joining us today from Israel, Rabbi Sam Spector. Of course, he's the rabbi of Congregation Kol Ami. He's been here since 2018, a friend of the show and a great friend of our community here in the state of Utah, and someone with great influence and reach, and is part of a unique delegation that has gone to Israel in the midst of the atrocities and challenges that are going on there. And Rabbi Spector, thank you so much for making time. We know it's late Israel time, but we appreciate you coming on board with us today.
I'm thrilled. Part of the reason I'm here is because being in my home in Utah, I wanted to connect with my home in Israel, and so I came here. And now that I'm at the Jewish home in Israel, it feels good to connect with my friends back in Utah, so thanks for the opportunity.
Well, wonderful. Well, give us a little perspective in terms of this group that you're traveling with and what the mission is going back to Israel right now.
Absolutely. We had noticed that, unfortunately, in the United States, there had been a growing divide between Israel and North American Jewry, and there's probably some fault on both sides for that has led to, unfortunately, the greatest separation I had seen in my lifetime, or really in the history of the state of Israel, between diaspora Jews and Israel. And so this trip actually came to be, the idea for it about 6 months ago, to go during this week as one, a solidarity trip, but two, to talk about how we can advance progressive Judaism within Israel and also Israel diaspora relations. When the war broke out, there were serious talks about, does this trip still happen? So this trip was planned before the war, and we decided, and by we have a group of 13 fellows who are Reform rabbis in the first 15 years of their career and are seen as the next leaders of our movement from all over the country, and who were selected for this fellowship. And we decided collectively that we should still go. That one, Israel's a place that we run to, not run from. Two, maybe we could actually help when we're over there and help in the cause and efforts and provide humanitarian aid and spiritual support. Three, maybe Israel could use our money at this time. And four, and most importantly, at a time like this, it is more important than ever before for us to show solidarity with Israel, which was the initial reason for the trip. And what better way to show solidarity with Israel than coming here and standing with Israelis and helping Israelis when they are experiencing the greatest challenge they've had in 50 years.
Yeah, no question about that, and truly no more important time for you to be there. Give us a little sense in terms of some of the support that you're doing there. I know since the war broke out, you've been helping with some of the family members who have family members that are being held hostage. You mentioned the spiritual support, and give us kind of a lay of the land in terms of what you've been seeing, what you've been doing there in Israel.
We have shifted the focus of this trip to focusing on the war and hearing perspectives on the war, but also seeing how we can do good. The civilians of Israel have really taken over in terms of providing aid. Now, at our hotel we're staying at, we're the only Americans here. Everybody else, the hotel is completely full, and everybody else is a resident from southern Israel in the towns that were attacked by Hamas on October 7th who have now been displaced. Wow. And so we're talking with those families. We visited a man in the hospital the other day. We visited a few people in the hospital, but one man told us his story for about 45 minutes, and I'll spare you the details because it's given me nightmares, and I've had a lot of tears over it. But his 15-year-old son and his wife were both killed in front of him, and he and his daughter were wounded severely, and fortunately his daughter survived, and he survived, but he had his leg amputated. And so hearing that's his story, today we met with an entire community, the community of Nahal Oz that was part of the massacre, and heard their stories of survival and how they resisted the terrorists. And we also met today with two families who had loved ones that were killed. One was actually a Muslim family whose nephew was an ambulance driver, and he rushed down to try and help and save people. And then when they were telling all the ambulance drivers, retreat, Hamas is killing everybody, he said, I speak Arabic, maybe I'll be okay. But they killed him too. And we met with a family whose loved one was killed in the war last week. And then we've also met with families of people who are being held hostage in Gaza, and including an American family. And that's something that I don't understand why that's not on the front cover of every American newspaper every single day. Is not only that there's 240 hostages, there are 12 American citizens who are being held hostage in Gaza. That's unacceptable. And as Americans, we need to do everything we can to get those folks back. And any calls for humanitarian aid, anything like this, should also include visits to the hostages. So please, listeners, advocate for your fellow Americans and for all who are being held hostage from age 10 months up to 87 years old.
Wow, that is such great perspective. And
one other thing we did was yesterday we spent 4 hours sorting clothing items and putting together clothing packages for the 200,000 Israelis who've been displaced from their homes and are now internal refugees in this crisis.
Wow. Just the extent and the ripples, I think, are so much greater than any of us can fully imagine. And it is one of those, until you actually experience it, it's really hard to get it all in proper perspective. Give us a sense, too, just in terms, as you've been carrying out this is important work because it's community. And I love how you framed it, that it's community that's driving everything there in terms of what the needs are in that local neighborhood or for that family or a lost loved one. It's always community, and I think that's so powerful. But give us a sense as you travel around the community, knowing you've got to be within 20 seconds of a bomb shelter. What's the sense on the ground, and just kind of how people are interacting day to day?
An Israeli came up to me today and said, I want to thank you. And I said, why is that? And she said, because you didn't ask me, how are you? And I'm so tired of being asked, how are you? And she said, I really appreciate now when people don't ask us that.
Yeah.
And so we've all learned, don't even ask the people here, how are you doing? Not only have they been just shattered, their sense of security has been shattered. It feels here like September 12th, 2001 did in America, where we said we woke up to a new day saying, now we know what can happen. The unthinkable has happened. But it is tough here. I haven't had to run to a shelter yet. There's been one barrage of rockets in Tel Aviv since I've been here, but I was actually at the hospital visiting wounded people at that time in a different part of the town. But everywhere we walk, we're looking around us for shelters. When we drive, we are praying that there's no shelter. And even, yesterday I was in the bathroom and I was saying, I really hope that there's not a rocket right now. And that's what Israelis deal with. Israelis were giving me when I was checking in, they said, we suggest you take a shower in the morning because Hamas has not typically fires rockets in the evening. So those are the things you have to unfortunately think about here. And this country has been subjected to 10,000 rockets being fired since October 7th.
We're going to stay with my conversation with Rabbi Samuel Spector of Congregation Kol Ami. He is in Israel. When we come back and we pick up the conversation with Rabbi Spector, we're going to talk about his experience there on the ground in Israel and what it's taught him about the resilience of the Jewish people. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. A life remembered.
The greatest desire in my heart is that I will learn through my obedience to be comfortable in that big red chair.
This Friday, KSL will present the memorial service for President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Listen starting at 10:30, with services starting Friday at 11. In your car or streaming live, you can hear it on KSL News Radio.
Food brings people together, but for many families, figuring out where their next meal is coming from is a challenge. 1 in 10 children struggle with hunger in Utah. No one should have to go hungry, especially children. Macy's has partnered with local food banks for the 2023 Harvest of Hope food drive to help keep that from happening. From now through November 30th, you can help a family in need. It's easy. At the checkout, simply let your cashier know how much you would like to donate through Macy's Icon Drive. You can also purchase a prepackaged bag of food filled with the items that food banks need most. Every donation, regardless of size, makes a difference. If you prefer to shop online, you can donate to the Harvest of Hope this season from the comfort of your home by adding either of Macy's donation options to your online shopping cart at macys.com/online. If you'd like to track the progress of donations made toward the Utah Food Bank or learn more about Harvest of Hope, visit macys.com. Macy's, happy shopping.
Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
At Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and to extend the legacy of care in our communities. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With our roots in northern Utah, Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals have a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
Experience the timeless Christmas classic that has captivated audiences nationwide. From master songwriter and storyteller Michael McLean, The Forgotten Carols is back. With an unforgettable story and songs that are a Christmas tradition for families everywhere. See the spectacular stage musical in Orem, Salt Lake, Ogden, Vernal, Tooele, and Heber. Tickets at ForgottenCarols.com.
Bill Riley here with University of Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham. Now tell me, Coach Whitt, what's your philosophy on a winning team?
I believe the key to winning is a strong offensive line. When the linemen do their job, nothing gets through to the quarterback, so he can do his job.
Well, what happens if the linemen don't do their job?
Ouch. You know, Bill, I recently learned that kidneys work like linemen for your body. When your kidneys work, they block poisons and chemicals from your blood.
Coach, I've heard that 1 in 9 Americans have some form of kidney disease. What can we do to fight back?
Join me, Coach Kyle Whittingham, and be part of the winning team against kidney disease. Donate your used car or truck to the Kidney Foundation. Your car will be towed for free, and you'll get a receipt for a tax deduction. Tell them how to do that, Bill.
Donate your car to the Kidney Foundation today and make your car a kidney car. Cars to save lives. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS. That's TOW CARS. Cars with a K. 1-800-TOW-CAR.
Every year, the National Kidney Foundation helps individuals and families affected by kidney disease. Help them out by making your car a kidney car. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS.
Is shopping for medical supplies online leaving you feeling intimidated and overwhelmed? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. I want to share a real customer story with you.
The moment I walked into Alpine, I felt cared for. They pulled me into a private room, and the Alpine professional happily set up my CPAP machine, explaining everything I needed to know. The service didn't stop there. After I went home, Alpine called me a week later just to check on me. These guys really are the experts. Before Alpine, I was so stressed trying to navigate what I needed online by myself, but all the stress went away when I went to their store. They really do deserve 5 stars.
We know when you walk through our doors, you deserve to be cared for. Stop by any of our 11 locations and discover the Alpine Home Medical difference. When you need assistance, we're here for you.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
AlpineHomeMedical.com.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a toxin linked to the nerve disease ALS has been found in the dust blowing off the dry lake bed around the Great Salt Lake. Second, Utah snowplow drivers getting ready for a big winter. Third, the man who broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and attacked her husband has been found guilty of assault in a federal court. Right now, 52 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're continuing the conversation with Rabbi Samuel Spector, Rabbi of Congregation Kol Ami here in Utah. He is in Israel, spoke to me a little earlier today. He's with a delegation of rabbis who have gone to Israel to show solidarity, to offer support, to help in communities. He's been describing to us some extraordinary things taking place on the ground there in Israel, and really describing how community and unity come in the face of adversity. It's an extraordinary thing to see take place. He's described some of the horrors and some of the challenges that some of the survivors are living with in the midst and in the aftermath of the brutal attack by Hamas on October the 7th. So I asked Rabbi Spector specifically to describe what he's learned in terms of the resilience of the people and the sense of community that he's experienced on the ground in Israel.
The feeling among the people here is what you're seeing all over Tel Aviv, all over Israel, everywhere, on all the buildings, everything is, it says, Yachad Ninachetz, which means united we will win. And there's this unbelievable feeling right now of solidarity, unity with each other, after there had been so much division, internal division before this war. And that pretty much everybody has major concerns and big problems with the government right now of how this was able to occur in the first place. But what's fascinating is when you think about a war, you think of people fleeing a country because of the war. In Israel, the rate of sign-up for the military has been over 100%. Now, how is that possible? About 200,000 Israelis, I believe was the number, you can check me on that, have flown back to Israel from abroad to sign up for the military. And everybody is saying, I need to go. I need to fight. I need to be there. I need to protect my land. And one of my friends who had planned to move outside of Israel, she decided, I'm not moving out of Israel. My home needs me, and this is where I'm going to stay. So, again, I think about September 12th, 2001, and how not only traumatized and devastated America was, but also how much more of a united country we were that day than we had been on September 10th.
Yeah, so powerful.
Yeah, and it's really been the civilians here who have taken over everything. The government has not adequately at all been providing for the displaced folks, and the civilians have taken over that project and have really done an incredible job.
What's the, before I let you go, Rabbi, and if you're just joining us, we have Rabbi Samuel Spector from Congregation Kol Ami from Salt Lake City, who's in Israel, joining us live from Israel. And Rabbi, what's the one thing that you wish people were thinking differently about as it relates to Israel and the Hamas atrocities?
I can only pick one. Well, I'll tell you, when we look at what's happening, it's amazing that 40 days ago or so, less than 40 days ago, the largest massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust occurred. And these were not freedom fighters, acts of resistance, anything like this. These were people who came over, murdered babies, kidnapped babies, and then went and retreated and hid among civilian populations. And people are saying that there needs to be an immediate ceasefire and things like that. Hamas did this to their people. They knew that this was going to be the outcome. And so I want people to not forget October 7th and what happened on October 7th. That's so important. I want people to not forget that there has been no Israeli presence inside of Gaza since 2005. This is not about freeing Palestine. This is about the eradication of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. And you see this, and they admit this. And so this is a genocidal operation that Hamas launched. And really, as a result, people are fighting for their lives here. And also, on top of that, we didn't hear people saying we need a ceasefire for ISIS, for blaming countries for going after ISIS. And I just, for the life of me, cannot understand how any decent person would not be sympathizing with Israel and, in this case, and strongly, in unequivocal terms, condemning what Hamas did and not including and talking about Israel. Like, any person of decency must remember what happened on October 7th, must demand of the U.S. government do everything you can to release the hostages, especially the American hostages, and must be standing against pure evil, which is what we saw last month.
Yeah. Rabbi Samuel Spector joining us live from Israel. Rabbi Spector, stay safe. We so appreciate the work you're doing, the impact you're having on individuals and community there. And it is a united, we will win moment to be sure. And we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thank you so much for your leadership, both in our community and what you're doing there in Israel. And we look forward to having you back and getting you back on the program very soon.
Always appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Rabbi Samuel Spector, Rabbi of Congregation Kol Ami here in the state of Utah, part of an extraordinary group of 13 rabbis who traveled to Israel. They're doing just lots of work in the communities. They're helping individuals. They're consoling and counseling with people. They're helping in every possible way. And it just shows, sometimes you say, well, what difference can I make? What can I do? There's always something that you can do. There's always something we all can do. And the test is, are we willing to actually do that? That's the big test. So again, big thanks to Rabbi Samuel Spector for staying up late and for joining us live from Israel here on Inside Sources. And we'll continue that coverage. We'll step aside for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll actually get to the issue of the hostages as we continue our coverage of the aftermath of October 7th and the Hamas attack and the current hostages. There might be a little crack and some progress. We'll talk about that coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. There's a huge amount of growth expected in the northern part of Utah County over the next few decades, and that has UDOT and local mayors trying to find spots to put a future freeway going east and west. The mayor of Lehi, Mark Johnson, tells KSL News Radio's David Dujanovic that UDOT will study turning Pioneer Crossing into a freeway. The city, though, would rather see a new freeway built along the northern shore of Utah Lake.
So we could improve that, make a freeway system that's functional, and also create new shoreline that's accessible.
2100 North in Lehi is already slated to be turned into a freeway to connect I-15 to the Mountain View Corridor. UDOT snowplow drivers getting ready to hit the roads again. Park City Shed Supervisor Morgan McCarthy says he's fine with however much snow falls this year, but he says last year was tough enough that some newer drivers quit.
You're not home a lot. I mean, you're working 24/7, and we work shift work where we're working 13, 14-hour shifts, and you're there. You live at the shed. I mean, you go home, you sleep for a couple hours, and you're back to work.
McCarthy says there's pros and cons to both big and small winters either way. Drivers say they're ready for whatever happens. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden addressed business leaders at the APEC summit in San Francisco today. Mr. Biden taking a victory lap of sorts on his economic agenda.
The last quarter, the American economy grew 4.9%, the highest growth rate in 2 years. More people in the United States.
The president ran into some trouble earlier for referring to the president of China, who he met with yesterday, as a dictator. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today down just 45 points after being down much further earlier. The NASDAQ up now 9.8 points, and the S&P 500 was up 5. And our KSL weather. Looks like things are going to dry out tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight. The traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News, 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hey, you've heard me say this before. People can say a whole lot. It's what they do that actually matters. And people can tell you that they're special. And a lot of businesses do that. But Hercules Credit Union actually puts those words into action. And now there's a great opportunity for you to find out just how awesome that is with Hercules Credit Union. All you have to do is open a new checking account, and Hercules Credit Union will upgrade you to Premier Checking status. Have that account free of any kind of monthly fee. You get all the perks and benefits that go with that. Your account has ultimate identity theft protection, travel benefits, perks like cellular care coverage, accidental damage, and so on. So many different things that come with your Premier Checking account. Again, no fees for a limited time. This is how Hercules Credit Union shows you that you actually are special. Check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City. And as always, with our friends at Hercules Credit Union, you can see how awesome they are at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Backed by popular demand, A Gentry Christmas. The most beloved Christmas songs of all time, brought to life with epic orchestrations and lush harmony. Bring your family together to experience A Gentry Christmas. Friday and Saturday, November 24th and 25th. For tickets, visit liveattheeccles.com. Presented by Zions Bank.
Are you a victim of the timeshare trap and think there's no way out? I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, the original timeshare cancellation expert. And I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. All you need to do is give my office a call. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Call now for your free info kit. 800-961-5544. 800-961-5544.
Attention Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. Don't wait for bad weather to schedule professional snow service with GoPave Utah. Your complete parking lot safety starts at GoPaveUtah.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Josh Kitchen.
Growing delays in Spanish Fork and Springville on I-15 southbound at the US 6 junction. And in the Salt Lake Valley, we have a crash at southbound Mountain View and 9000 South that's causing some minor delays. It's on the right shoulder. How do you know if you're getting the best deals on employee benefits? You don't unless you get free quotes from every insurance company every year. Visit shopmyplan.com to get free quotes. Josh Kitchen in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Tomorrow will be partly cloudy and cool with a high of 58. 55 on Saturday with a chance of rain, and 48 with more rain likely on Sunday. Right now, we're at 55 degrees with mostly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings, or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
As the war between Israel and Hamas continues, there is a significant deal being considered, at least, that could free a significant number of hostages currently being held by Hamas inside of Gaza. While Hamas negotiators have agreed to this hostage exchange deal, the Israeli government is still working that through as well. And as always in these situations, nothing is final until it is final. So we want to dig into what is the proposed deal, what are we hearing, and what are the steps moving forward. And really pleased to have back on the show Karen DeYoung, Associate Editor and Senior National Security Correspondent for the Washington Post. And Karen, welcome back to the show. And it looks like Hamas has agreed, at least tentatively, to a deal. Give us some of the sense there.
Well, thank you. I think what's important to realize about these negotiations is it's not a group of people sitting around a table and kind of hashing out the details. It's an extremely laborious process where the Americans are talking to the Israelis. They're both talking to the government of Qatar, which is talking to Hamas, since neither of them actually speak directly to Hamas. And their representatives are carrying on these talks. And then it has to go back to their capitals, certainly in Hamas's case, back to whoever's in charge, to kind of give an answer. And so during the weeks when this has been going on, they've come up with a number of different permutations of what a deal like this could look like. And I think following the visit to Doha, the Qatari capital where these talks are being held, last week of the CIA director, William Burns, and the director of Mossad, his counterpart in Israel, and the political directors of Hamas who are talking to the Qataris, who are talking to the Americans and the Israelis. Hamas people eventually said, okay, you can have somewhere between 50 and 100. I mean, I think more than 50 women and children among the captives that they would let go if there was a pause of 3 to 5 days and more humanitarian aid came into Gaza. And some women and minors, they say children, but they're basically teenagers who are in jail in Israel are released. Hamas tentatively agreed to this. The Americans said yes. The Americans, certainly from President Biden on down, have been asking for a pause of several days to allow the hostages who are believed to be spread in a number of different places to be assembled and a route figured out to get them safely out of Gaza. This then went to the Israelis, who since late Tuesday have been sort of mulling it over and haven't, to my knowledge, yet today given a response. I think they're opposed to any kind of a pause of more than a few hours that they're giving now for people to evacuate places in Gaza where there's lots of fighting. But, the concern is now that because people's minds change all the time on this, but the longer this goes on, that if either the Israelis will say no, and then it'll be back to square one, or they will say yes, and Hamas will have changed its mind by then, or the situation on the ground will have changed. So it's a very dicey situation.
Yeah, and Karen, I appreciate you walking us through that, because that is the complexities to all of this that a lot of folks aren't thinking about. I think you hit it right at the beginning and say this is not a group of people sitting around a table negotiating, and the fact that we're relying on places like Qatar, who sometimes are part arson, part firefighter, and so that creates a whole interesting dynamic in there as well. The president has, of course, been very invested in this, even said as much yesterday after his meeting with Chinese President Xi, saying he was deeply involved in negotiations. Right. Have you gotten any sense at these numbers, if it's 50 or 50 plus, do we have any sense if that includes the at least 12 Americans that we know are being held hostage in Gaza?
No, I think it's 9 American passport holders and 1 permanent legal resident of the United States. There's been no discussion at this point as to what would comprise, say, if it were 50 women and children. One thing that they've said is that they don't want to split up families, because in some cases there are a number of family members that are together, that were taken hostage together. I think that this is a subject of some contention in Israel, where the families of Israeli hostages have said, why would you even consider allowing foreigners to go before Israelis? So that's a problem. I think that we don't believe and the administration has said that not all of these hostages are being held by Hamas. There's another militant group in Gaza called the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, some of whose militants, when the borders were knocked down, on October 7th, ran into Israel, the communities along the Gaza border, along with Hamas, and took hostages of their own. We're not totally sure where they are. We're not sure where any of them are. One of the things that Israel had said about its offensive against hospitals in Gaza this week was that that's where they thought hostages were being held, but they haven't found any evidence of any hostages there. So it's a question of figuring out where everybody is, who can most safely and within the time constraints be brought to a place that would allow them, probably with the International Red Cross, to escort them to one of the border openings.
Fascinating. And as we look at where this goes next, give us a sense of what you're keeping your eye on. What are some of the things that might give us some indication that we're making that progress, or that we might be getting towards at least some resolution or getting some of those hostages out?
Well, understandably, the U.S. government doesn't want to talk about this at all. Really, no one who's participating wants to talk about it at all. And so, we're getting very small details. I think that, again, what people involved now say they're waiting for is for the Israelis to respond. And they haven't gotten a response. There have been press accounts in Israel saying that Israel's war cabinet was supposed to have a meeting on this Tuesday night. They didn't have it. They were supposed to have a meeting on Wednesday. They didn't have it. Once that group approves or disapproves, let's say they approve, it needs to go to the full Israeli cabinet for approval. So we just don't know if those things have happened yet.
Yeah, and that's, as you pointed out, every step and every chance there is for a hesitation or a vacillation back and forth, the more that continues to be uncertain, and the more likely it is to unravel at some point along the way. Karen DeYoung is associate editor and senior national security correspondent for the Washington Post. And Karen, we always appreciate your deep dive perspective and helping us see the full picture on what this actually looks like on the ground. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Again, that's Karen DeYoung, associate editor and senior national security correspondent for the Washington Post. And Karen always helps us navigate all of it. This is complexity upon complexity. You don't have people around a table negotiating about these hostages. This is, it's almost like the old telephone game. It's through a friend of a friend of a friend, and sometimes those friends are not all that friendly to begin with. We'll continue to follow all of that in terms of what those actually look like, and hopefully we get some forward movement in getting some of those hostages home. Stick around. We'll take one last break, come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources. We'll be right back.
Attention smart homeowners. You don't have to fall for flashy promises and companies that don't even prove their work. At Your Service Pros uses third-party verification software called MeasureQuick to ensure your new HVAC system is installed correctly. This ultimate game changer in the HVAC industry lets you, the homeowner, have proof of how your system was installed. At Your Service Pros utilizes our Bluetooth tools to upload all of your system's information into MeasureQuick. We rely on data-driven insights to properly commission, optimize, and fine-tune your HVAC system for peak performance, improving your family's comfort, lowering your utility bills, and extending the life of your HVAC system. With rebates and tax credits available totaling more than $7,500 on a dual fuel heating and cooling system, it is now more important than ever that your HVAC system be installed correctly. So call us today at 801-YOUR-PRO. That's 801-YOUR-PRO. Have the peace of mind of saving up to 50% on your new system and knowing it's installed correctly by calling 801-YOUR-PRO.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15s. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Get your home's electrical system running in peak condition by scheduling a $79 whole home electric inspection with the professionals at Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric today. The electrical experts at Yes are ready to help identify unsafe conditions and possibly prevent expensive repairs in the future. Proudly serving Utah for more than 45 years. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Life is full of change and uncertainty. Sometimes it feels impossible to know what to focus on or who to listen to. In his new book, Heart of the Matter, What 100 Years of Living Has Taught Me, President Russell M. Nelson sheds light on how we can find meaning in mortality, how to focus on what really matters. Pulling from a century of life experience as a surgeon, father, and prophet, he reassures readers that there really are unchanging truths that can anchor us in an ever-changing world. Get yours today at a Deseret bookstore or deseretbook.com.
I was crossing the street when I met the love of my life. I chased after her. Nothing would stand in my way. Not the dog walker, nor the hot dog vendor. Finally reaching her, I asked, "What do you call that amazing smell?"
It's Gain Flings.
Gain Flings. My love had a name, but more importantly, it had a scent.
Fall in love with Gain Flings. Seriously good scent. Gain Flings with 50% more freshness ingredients versus leading bargain detergent.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. There are a lot of great dads out there. Sometimes those dads get divorced. For more than 30 years, we have represented men in divorce, confronting the pitfalls that could devastate your finances or harm your family relationships. While every situation is different, our goal is to get the best outcome for you and your kids. Visit CordellCordell.com to take the first step.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Salt Lake City area attorneys. 910 West Legacy Center Way, Suite 120, Midvale, Utah, 84047.
Utah Symphony's Film and Concert Series delivers full-feature films on the big screen as the orchestra plays the soundtrack live. Tickets on sale now at utahsymphony.org.
Hello, car donation hotline.
Hi, I'd like to donate a car to the Utah Kidney Foundation. Are you in Utah?
Awesome. Let's get some info and we'll send you a tow truck.
But I want my car donation to benefit my neighbor in Farmington who needs a transplant. Are you in Utah?
That's a no. I'm in SoCal, but you're still donating to charity.
What charity?
Doesn't matter.
Yes, I want my donation to stay in Utah.
Righteous dude. You need to call Tow Cars in Utah. Locals only, am I right?
Oh, yeah. I remember tow cars with a K like kidney. It's on a billboard somewhere. TOWKARS.org. That's it. Towcars.org.
If you'd like your vehicle donation to help Utah kidney patients in the Beehive State, please use the web address on their billboard, towcars.org, to donate your old car or truck. That's TOWK like kidney, ARS. Towcars.org.
Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News. We're committed to letting you know exactly what's going on. On our show, we're going to bring you up to speed on what's happening in the world to this moment. At the same time, the news can be really burdensome. It can leave you feeling a little bit depressed and even a little bit more depressed. My Minute of News is just a moment to lift you up. I'm blessed that KSL has given me the freedom to talk about whatever I want. Literally, it is my minute of news. Sometimes it's pegged to what's happening that very day. Sometimes it might be something bizarre that you didn't know happening somewhere else in the world. To make you smile for a moment, even on a difficult day, and make you realize the world is still spinning. I am so honored that so many people have appreciated and enjoy the Minute of News every afternoon.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, last year's heavy snow was tough enough on some snowplow drivers that they quit. Second, the mayor of Lehi talking about building a new freeway along the northern shore of Utah Lake. Third, President Biden bragging about the U.S. economy to a group of CEOs today. Right now, 55 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And as we round out the program today, of course, One of the big news items of last night was we didn't have to do the countdown clock all the way to Friday to fund the federal government. The United States Senate passed the stopgap measure that would fund the government until about the 19th of January, portion of it. The other part will continue until February. It's kind of a new two-step process that they're going to try out this time around. And we should celebrate that. That is a very good thing. It was done by partisan support in both the House and the Senate. In fact, just shortly after the Senate passed the bill last night and sent it on to the president, Senate Majority Leader, Democrat Chuck Schumer, made comments about the continuing resolution bill, saying it was far from perfect, but done in a bipartisan manner.
The House's CR is far from perfect, but we're moving forward because we believe it accomplishes two things that I and other Democrats have been insistent on for weeks. It will avoid a government shutdown, and it will do so without any of the cruel cuts or poison pills that the hard right pushed for. I think it was very important that Speaker Johnson recognized that Democratic votes are necessary to pass anything of significance in Congress. Thus far, the Speaker has heeded the lesson as we finish the appropriations process. Bipartisanship is the only way forward.
So, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is actually right. You do have to have bipartisan support to get those things done. But here's the real thing beyond the headline. This was a pure manifestation. Of course, the countdown clocks were all going. The hand-wringing was happening. Everyone had their panic button ready for another shutdown showdown on Friday. But, man, we didn't even make it to Friday this time, and they got things done. But this is a testament to something that I learned while I was in Washington, D.C., and that is the greatest lubricant to get a bipartisan bill done is the jet fumes from the planes revving up at Washington Reagan International Airport, meaning that every member of Congress wanted to get home for recess and Thanksgiving. No one wanted to stay the weekend this weekend to have a big showdown and shutdown fight. No one wanted to come back next week during Thanksgiving week. They wanted to stay home. And so they got it done. So on one hand, yes, we will applaud because we are equal opportunity commenders as well as equal opportunity offenders. But we also have to realize that this was a short-term stopgap measure. And while I think it was better than most of these, it really does not solve any of the big problems, and it doesn't have any of the serious conversations we actually have to get to as a country. And in essence, what we really did is we kicked the can into January. Now, normally they just would have kicked it into December, and we would have had this whole fake fight and false choice again just before the Christmas holiday. But instead, they have at least spared us that drama, and we've kicked it into January and into February of 2024. So, a lot of challenges to all of that. I do think we need to applaud the new Speaker of the House for trying something different. Normally in this setting, you just get one big omnibus bill, which means everything's just all thrown together, which is where a lot of really bad spending happens. And the new Speaker of the House said, we're going to do it different. So he used this ladder system, this two-step system, to see if he couldn't force the House and the Senate to get back to regular order in terms of how they're supposed to fund the government. Here's what he said earlier this week.
The House Republican Conference is committed to never being in this situation again. I'm done with short-term CRs. We're resolved. So what that means is you're going to see in the beginning of this next year, we'll be walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to get the appropriations process running on time as it's supposed to be under law. Congress hasn't done that for as long as we can remember. But we're going to get back to that because that's good stewardship. The American people deserve it. And the debt situation we find ourselves in necessitates that.
Good stewardship. If we can get to that conversation, this will have been worth it. And so I do applaud Speaker Johnson for getting to a different kind of conversation and saying, hey, we're going to at least to try to do this different. People have become far too comfortable in the status quo, far too comfortable in just doing short-term CR, continuing resolution after short-term CR, and that's how you actually get $33 trillion in debt, is one bad CR at a time. And so I do think it's a good thing that the Speaker has said, hey, we're going to do this different. We're going to get back to regular order. The test will be, what does that look like when we get into January? And you can bet that we're going to keep our eye on that and continue to hold both sides of the aisle accountable for actually doing what they say is the most important thing to do, which is to get our own house in order. And so that will be the test for that. So on the good news front, you don't have to worry about a shutdown showdown tomorrow. It's done. You can enjoy Thanksgiving week, as can all the members of Congress, because guess what? As soon as that vote was taken last night, they all left the building. The United States Capitol is empty. Everyone's gone home for the holiday. But we have not. So we will continue on, and that's going to wrap it up for us here on Inside Sources. As a reminder, tomorrow we will have special coverage of the funeral services of the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, M. Russell Ballard. You can also go to kslnewsradio.com for a special piece that I wrote today about President Ballard, his life, his legacy, and his call to come and see. That wraps it up for us today. Make sure as you go out into the world that you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something today that'll make a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen